Tom, we're here in the Canary Islands at the fourth annual Trending Topics in GU Cancers. You gave a talk on your big idea, which was something called the Uromigos score. I first heard about it Wednesday at about 3 in the morning.
I apologize for that phone call.
This is, it's basically, you first started in urothelial cancer, different areas of urothelial cancer we'll talk about. And you came up, you asked 18 urothelial cancer experts around the world about how would they score a given treatment in given clinical scenarios, anywhere from 0 to 3. 3 is the standard of care. 2 is not quite the standard, but a very reasonable option. 1 is probably less than the standard, but maybe in certain circumstances can be useful. And 0 is really, inappropriate and should not be used.
You describe it better than me.
Thank you. And then you amassed the scores and basically just came up with a mean.
Yes.
Right? So the mean score for a given treatment in a given circumstance is X. And it sort of gives you an idea of the opinion of everybody and where a certain treatment falls. And obviously it's relative to other treatments because we're deciding individual treatments for individual patients. Let's talk about the perioperative setting. What were the scenarios that you asked and what were the scores?
So we asked a series of scenarios starting with the neoadjuvant chemotherapy eligible population.
Okay.
And we asked for chemotherapy alone. So neoadjuvant chemotherapy and cystectomy. And we showed a score of 1.7. So most people feel you probably should be giving perioperative immune therapy of some description. The highest score was for perioperative durvalumab. That scored a 2.9.
Okay.
So treatment with chemotherapy plus durvalumab, cystectomy, and then adjuvant durvalumab was 2.9.
Okay. So almost everybody scored it a 3 then, they must have, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Not everybody, otherwise.
Yeah.
And then behind there was neoadjuvant chemotherapy and adjuvant nivolumab.
Okay.
And that scored a 2.1.
Okay.
And we asked about whether the biomarker made any difference. Because in Europe you've only got a label and PD-1 positive. It didn't really make any difference. Same sort of score. I think it was 2.2. So that didn't make very much difference. We then asked about the last bit. Then we said, well, let's assume they're not eligible for cisplatin. What would you do then? And cystectomy followed by nivolumab or pembrolizumab,
okay.
and it showed that we showed nivolumab and pembrolizumab were essentially interchangeable. Mm-hmm. That score then bounced back up to 2.5 because it wasn't competing with perioperative durvalumab, so that then becomes much more of an attractive option, which kind of makes sense. So the last question was whether TMT is an alternative to cystectomy, trimodal therapy, as an alternative to chemotherapy, to cystectomy. And this isn't just in the cisplatin ineligible population, that was in the cisplatin eligible population. Yeah. And actually that scored pretty high, that scored 1.9. Yeah. Which is, yes, most people think it as an alternative. Now it's not the gold standard, but as an alternative. And so I probably have been talking about it having a lower score than that. I probably scored it at 1 rather than 2. We're not using so much, but many people around the world clearly are. And of these 18 individuals who we've reached out to, and thanks to them, of course, we got a score of 1.9, which I think was interesting because it shows that the two may be interchangeable.
And so we'll see these data, these scores and the data will evolve over the next, several months in meetings, and obviously there'll be repolling of the experts so that you can see how these scores change over time.
Well, I've been predicting EV-pembro is going to be positive in this space, and if that's the case, then all bets are off.
Then for all the scenarios, they change. For all the disease settings.
I guess they do, don't they?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Great.